Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Now, in case you hear any weird noises as I'm recording this, I have to tell you that I have Flam and Buzz with me, and Flam in particular is being particularly needy, so I am currently petting her with one hand while she does what I call chaos breathing, and Buzz snacks on a bone that Flam wants to steal, but instead is just going to be needy with me. So, Flam, how do you feel about that? Oh, she finally stopped chaos breathing and just sniffed the microphone. I doubt that you heard anything, but yeah, that's how things are going for me. Anyway, outside of that, things are actually going great. So I am up in Vermont right now. Well, technically I'm in New Hampshire right now. I'm staying in New Hampshire, playing in Vermont. And we just had our first audience for the musical Waitress at Northern Stage. And it went really well, and the people seem to love it. If you are a fan of musicals or of Sarah Bareilles' music or just of me, and you're interested in checking that out, we'll be running at Northern Stage for the next month or so. And that's in White River Junction, Vermont. It's a really beautiful area, lots of great hiking, lots of great food and drink, and just a really cool place. So if you have the opportunity, come and check it out. And then the other kind of big thing that is going on. Oh, actually, before I say that, real quick reminder also, if you've been listening for a while, VINS is up here, which is the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences, where they do all kind of bird rehab and have cool raptors and all kinds of other amazing birds that were deemed unreleasable that you can see. And actually, I was already there on this trip and went and visited Gray and Anna, the two people that I've interviewed twice for the pod. And it was so great to see. They have a new aviary there, and just the staff is doing super well, and the birds are doing well, and it was such a joy to be back at VINS. So if you want to come see my show, you can also go and experience VINS. Highly recommend it. Okay, now that we're done with that, the other big news going on this week is that you may have seen a video featuring me and Jungle Jordan and Stephanie Arney as we all are sportscasters for this year's March of the Penguin Madness through Penguins International. And we are having a really, really fun time doing that. Our meeting where we recorded that first video was actually the second meeting we had that day as we were talking through things and figuring out logistics and all that stuff the first time. And I have to tell you, it was so much fun, and it was a bit of a therapy session for all of us. And of course, the person involved from Penguins International is Katie Propp, who we all absolutely adore and who y'all have heard on the podcast multiple times. And the four of us just had the best time doing that. And we are going to do weekly videos for the entire competition, which I am ridiculously excited about. So we are having a lot of fun there. And yeah, I hope y'all are checking them out. And I hope y'all get involved in the voting and picking your favorite penguin and all that good stuff, because it's going to be really fun. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. Last year, I made some of these videos kind of just freelance on my own, but this year we are doing it as a team, and it is quite the quartet, though there are only three of us actually on screen. And it is just such a pleasure and such a joy, and I hope y'all are enjoying it. So that's really all I've got to say on the personal side of things, other than quick reminder, this is Rossifari Zoo News. It is a crowdsourced zoo news program, and you can tag me in things on socials or email me things to rossifaripod@gmail.com, and I will say your name at the end of the episode. Okay, I'm going to get to the actual news stuff now. Unfortunately, that means I'm going to have to stop petting Flam for a second, so wish me luck, y'all, and I'll see you back on the other side of this song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ow, that's a funky monkey. Tree kangaroo. Or a binturong.
It's Zoo News.
Yeah.
All right, and we're going to start off with a quick headline story this week, which is that Flam has stolen Buzz's bone, so I no longer have to pet her with one hand while recording. And Buzz is not growling too much in retaliation, so my life just got a lot easier. But okay, that's not what we're actually talking about. We don't actually have a big headline story this week, so we're going to go right to births. And it starts off with our friends at Roger Williams Park Zoo, who have announced the birth of 4 9-banded armadillo pups to mom, Patsy. Now, I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty sure that means that there are 36 new bands at the zoo, which I think is absolutely incredible. Patsy is actually an ambassador armadillo, and her and the little ones are doing super well behind the scenes, all hanging out together. And I don't usually announce this kind of stuff just because things in the zoo world can change in an instant. But I am super excited to say that I will be visiting the zoo in about a week and a half to interview the ambassador team. And part of that will be that I will be meeting these little ones. I am so excited, as they have earned every bit of viral love they are getting. And of course, if it doesn't work out for any reason, I'll look like a goober to y'all. But as of now, that's the plan, and I simply cannot wait. Oh, and this just in, some breaking news. Flam's back. I'm back to petting Flam while recording this. You're welcome. Anyway, Amari, the female Wolverine that calls Zoo Montana home, has given birth to 3 Wolverine kits. They are adorable. Currently, the animals are all living in their den with their mother until she is comfortable letting them explore, but there are photos on social media that are well worth a look. Seneca Park Zoo is celebrating the birth of 3 North American river otter pups. 2 females and 1 male were born to mother Ashki, and the trio represent the first time the species has ever been born at that particular zoo. Now, the zoo has actually set up a webcam so you can watch the little ones as they learn to swim and eat and generally do utterly adorable things with each other. A prehensile tail porcupine, also known as a porcupet or quendu, has been born to first-time mother Clover and dad Pashka, who calls Zoo Miami home. The little one is scheduled to eventually join the ambassador team at the zoo to become an incredible ambassador for the species. On a side note, the birth is also exciting because Pashka is 21 years old, far older than the normal lifespan of the species, which is 15 to 17 years. So the fact that he is not only still doing well, but also making babies is very exciting. The Toledo Zoo has welcomed 3 black-headed cat-snake hatchlings to the fold. This is the first time the species has been born at the zoo and represents one of the first hatchings of the species to ever take place at an AZA facility. This will hopefully translate to other facilities having success in sustaining this population in human care. The Duke Lemur Center has welcomed a cockerel's Shifok baby to parents Lupicina and Gabe. The little one is named Majorian, and this brings the family to 5. I guess in my own way of coming up with species baby names, this would be a cockerel's Sheaflet, which is weird, but I kind of like. Anyway, congrats to the Duke Lemur Center. The Sacramento Zoo has welcomed a female giraffe calf, or girlet, born to mom Amira. Mom and baby are doing well. The birth was textbook, and all is right at the barn at the Sacramento Zoo. The Denver Zoo has also welcomed a giraffe calf to mom Bibi and dad Jasiri. Both mom and baby are thriving behind the scenes for a while until baby can be introduced to the herd in the next few days or weeks. Sedgwick County Zoo has announced the birth of a baby Chicoan peccary. Born to parents Pickles and Carl, she is already making trouble in the best way with constant zoomies whenever she's not cuddled up with mom in their den. The best part is that she's already visible on exhibit, so you can catch the cuteness for yourself. The Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Nebraska has welcomed a baby klipspringer. Now, if you don't know, a klipspringer is a small antelope found in Africa, and they are adorable. The parents are Daphne and Nadir, and this is significant in part because Daphne is 18 years old, making her the oldest klipspringer to ever give birth, at least as recorded by an AZA facility. And last but not least, in births, the Nashville Zoo has announced the birth of a female clouded leopard cub. And yes, that's awesome, but what I find kind of fascinating about this story is that it has gone super viral, even making it onto many traditional media outlets like Good Morning America. And that's awesome, and yes, this little one is adorable and everything, but here's the thing. The Nashville Zoo is great at breeding cloudies. Like, they do it all the time. They have a ton of success. It's a great program. And I am glad that it is getting national attention. Well deserved. But it's also just so crazy to see what does and doesn't go viral when it comes to this stuff. Still, anything putting good stories from amazing zoos out into the wider public is good by me. Just always shocked by what does take off and what doesn't. Anyway, moving on from births, we get to our deaths. The Phoenix Zoo has said goodbye to Sierra, a 17-year-old mountain lion that called the zoo home. Sierra, along with her sister Mystic, lived at the zoo after being rescued as cubs when their mother was hunted while the cubs were still nursing. Along with giving the two cats a second lease on life, the zoo was also able to give them very long lives. Cougars only live around 10 years in the wild, so 17 is a particularly impressive age to reach, especially with such an inauspicious start to life. The zoo is currently in the final stages of opening a new mountain lion habitat, and while Sierra won't be there for it, it will stand as a reminder of the amazing life she had at the zoo and as a commitment to helping this species in the future. Zoo de Granby recently announced the birth of a baby sloth named Paz, but sadly, Paz has passed away. When the baby was found on the ground, the team acted immediately to isolate him and his mother and to try to get him vet care and figure out exactly what happened. But unfortunately, it was too late and he did not survive. Initial necropsy results did not explain why he fell from his mother or what the exact cause of death was. It's always hard to lose an animal, and especially a baby, and even more so in an unexplained way, so sending all the love to the team there. Our friends at Lehigh Valley Zoo have said goodbye to Hopscotch, a 6-year-old kangaroo. Hopscotch was a very special kangaroo in that she was way more open to interacting with humans, in particular her keepers, than many kangaroos are. As such, the team was able to build a close relationship with her. She recently stopped eating as much as usual, and upon veterinary exam, it was discovered she had an infection that started in her tongue and spread into the rest of her digestive system. Despite providing the best care possible, Hopscotch did pass away during the examination, sending all the love to the incredible team at the zoo. And then last but not least in our deaths, the Jacksonville Zoo has said goodbye to Archie, the southern white rhino. At 55 years old, Archie was the oldest male of his species in human care. Sadly, the care team recently discovered that Archie had a soft tissue sarcoma, which is a type of cancer. The decision was made that treatment would be too challenging for him given his age and the extent of the tumor, so the decision was made to say goodbye. Archie was not just important to the Jacksonville Zoo, but to the rhino population in North America at large. He was actually a founder of the North American rhino population and leaves an incredible 60 descendants behind. And moving on from births and deaths, we get to the rest of our zoo news section. Monarto Safari Park in Australia has been successfully partaking in some incredible conservation breeding recently, and I want to give them a shout out for 2 of their projects. First of all, the park has successfully hatched 2 Plains Wanderer chicks, which have been raised and cared for by a foster father of the species. Now, this is a first for the park and is hugely important as the species is endangered in the wild, and you'll actually hear more good news about these endangered birds in the conservation news section this week. Meanwhile, the park has also had a successful breeding season for their Malay emu wrens, a tiny species about which very little is known. This is the first ex-situ population of the species and only the second birthing season for them. Monarto has installed cameras in the area, hoping to monitor the birds' activities to better understand their behaviors and nesting positions, with the hopes of creating the first ever conservation breeding and care guidelines for the species. Monarto out here just saving all the burbs. You gotta love it. And speaking of birds, we have an update on one of the most beloved guests of the podcast. And no, I don't mean a human guest. I'm talking about Zulu, the Lady Ross's Tarako that has featured on many episodes from the Cincinnati Zoo. Zulu has gotten into the bad habit of over-grooming one specific area of her chest, which can cause problems for birds. As such, the zoo has taken a unique approach to fixing the problem. She is currently wearing a collar designed by her care team in conjunction with the veterinary staff at the zoo, which makes it impossible for her to groom the area. While it's not a cone and doesn't cover her head, for all intents and purposes, Zulu has a cone of shame. Let's call it what it is. And that's a little sad, but also super adorable. And I love the novel approach the zoo is taking to ensure that her feathers grow back correctly. Also, during this time, Zulu is under more constant observation, which means you're more likely than ever to get to see this usually behind-the-scenes beauty at the AAC building when you visit the zoo. Zoo Poznań in Poland recently continued the trend of red pandas being the escape artists none of us expected them to be. One of the pandas at the zoo escaped its habitat recently, most likely because of third-party damage to the habitat, which I think is a polite way of the zoo saying someone screwed with the fencing and the animal got out. Fortunately, the panda was quickly found, happy and healthy, relaxing not too far from its enclosure. I'm glad everything turned out so well, and while it appears this happened because of vandalism, I do continue to be shocked at just how much better red pandas are at escapes than most other animals. And actually, that's not the only escape to report this week. Reid Park Zoo has announced that one of their animals was recently found outside her enclosure. Now, this wasn't a red panda, but it was another incredibly agile animal that is known for its agility and climbing skills, and also for being small enough to squeeze out of small spaces and tiny gaps. That's right, y'all. It was obviously a giraffe. Okay. They aren't any of those things. But Satuni, a 3-year-old giraffe, was found outside her enclosure before the zoo opened one morning. And the zoo immediately delayed opening for an hour and a half and initiated its emergency response protocol. Tsuni was calm the entire time, standing in one place and snacking on a nearby tree. She came back into her habitat on her own accord, and all was well. Modifications are being made to the habitat to ensure this can't happen again, and fortunately in this case, nothing bad happened. And we actually have a third escape to discuss this week. Zoo Miami announced that a golden lion tamarin was able to fit through a small opening in the containment mesh of its habitat that had been compromised. The animal was quickly secured with no issue, and the mesh is being repaired. I love that in all 3 of these stories, the animals were able to be contained and returned home with no issue, showing the incredible ability of zoos to adapt to these situations and handle them well. It's just crazy that there were 3 of them this week. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Before we get to that, the North American section of the Columbus Zoo has been undergoing some major renovations recently, and the zoo has now announced their plans for the area, and they look amazing. North America Trek will be opening in early summer this year with new habitats and immersive experiences that will allow guests to experience the animals in the North America area like never before. I am so excited. It looks so cool. And then last but not least, in the zoo news section this week, multiple zoos have been experiencing that thing that happens every once in a while where idiots on the internet start claiming that an animal has escaped from a zoo and is out roaming the area around the zoo, and they post like fake photos or like real photos with fake captions or other stuff to try and make it look like it's really happening. My favorite one of the recent reports is that supposedly a gorilla escaped from the Virginia Zoo, which would be a really impressive feat, as the Virginia Zoo doesn't have gorillas. Possibly because they all escaped? No, that's not why. They just don't have gorillas. And this isn't just people being stupid in the United States. It's happening all over the globe. For instance, Currumbin Sanctuary in Australia has not, in fact, lost one of its crocs, and that croc is not, in fact, swimming in a creek along the Gold Coast Highway where it might eat swimmers. Oi. Whenever I see something like this, I do wonder whether it's a concentrated activity from anti-zoo groups or whether it's just someone being dumb and then other people being copycats. Because this is at least the second time I've seen an entire wave of these types of things hit all over the world in a short amount of time while I've been doing zoo news. But who knows? I also think that sometimes things just look super surprising or like more than coincidental because of how on this podcast we focus in on one specific thing, namely zoo and animal stuff week after week. Like, along with these fake escapes, there were 3 actual escape stories that I'm reporting on this week, which could definitely make people think that there is some new trend in zoos where animals are like busting out, when the truth is I haven't reported on many escapes at all over the last many months. So yeah, coincidences do happen, and this could just be that as well, or people could be tempted to do fake ones because of these real ones. I don't know. But anyway, it's all good, and these animals that you're hearing about escaping have not escaped, except for the ones that, actually escaped. As always, trust the actual facility to be transparent. If that has happened, and if they're not talking about it, it's probably some made-up BS, y'all. And that brings us to
Stereotypical Animal Podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news.
our unprecedented streak of rediscoveries of species that were thought extinct or extinct in a certain area continues this week. Asian small-clawed otters have been confirmed in Nepal for the first time in 185 years. As of now, only one of the species has been discovered in the area, but it was a juvenile and was found too far away from any areas known to contain the species for it to have made the trip on its own. What this means for the future of the species in the area is still unknown, but hey, at least we know they are still there. And that's not the only rediscovery we are celebrating. Plains wanderers, an Australian species of bird that I mentioned earlier, have been found living in western Melbourne for the first time in more than 30 years. These birds are incredibly elusive and hard to spot, and it's been believed that the birds had gone extinct in the area for quite some time. However, Zoos Victoria recently installed 35 audio recorders in the area, which they called song meters, which they used to collect tens of thousands of hours of recordings of the area, and then they had AI analyze the recordings. The computers quickly discovered the unique call of the birds in question at 2 different sites, and humans were then able to go out and investigate those areas and confirm that the birds were in fact still there. This is yet another example of how technology is giving us a better understanding of what animals are still around this giant blue marble of ours, even when we maybe think they aren't. And actually, we have one more rediscovery this week. The Galapagos rail has been rediscovered on Floriana Island. This bird species lives a largely terrestrial lifestyle, making them more vulnerable to predators on the ground than most bird species. Invasive species have been brought to the island in droves, many of which are ground-based predators, and so the Galapagos rail population was decimated in many areas, and was believed to be gone from this one particular island for the past 190 years. Fortunately, conservation efforts are already underway on the island, which focus on removing the invasive species there. So the rediscovery of this bird species is hopefully proof that those efforts are having a positive effect. And also, since they are already ongoing, those efforts should continue to be a way to safeguard this rediscovered species. And on a side note about all these rediscoveries, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but while I'm super excited about all of them, I do sometimes wonder if this trend will eventually lead the, let's say, less climate conscious amongst us to try to discredit conservationists and climate scientists as being overly concerned and crying wolf one too many times. Like, I know that rediscovery stories are exciting and happy, and, that's not always stuff that we get to do in the conservation news section. But I do also feel like we are currently kind of just in a pretty dark timeline. So I do worry about, stuff like that. Misinformation and bad actions from governments are a thing right now. And completely unrelated to what I just said, the Trump administration has called for over 100 million hectares of forests to be chopped down, which is an area nearly 3 times the size of California. The executive order is focused on chopping down trees in federally protected forests, which will obviously lead to species being more at risk because of habitat loss, as well as higher fire risk and pollution. And, along with all of that, there's also the fact that it will destroy recreation sites in these areas. And also, that will hurt the local economy in these areas because they rely on tourists visiting these pristine forests. It all just sucks and is just the latest example of Trump taking protected lands and literally just handing them to corporations that want to destroy them for profit. And I know that I'm literally reporting at least one bad conservation-themed topic from the Trump administration every week right now, and I do apologize. I know people like to get away from the political stuff. But yeah, this is just not the best time for conservation in the United States right now. And actually, I do have another sad story for this section. 6 elephants in Sri Lanka were recently killed when a passenger train collided with an elephant herd outside a wildlife sanctuary in the country, which also caused multiple cars from the train to derail. Fortunately, no humans were injured or died in the accident. And while this was a particularly devastating crash, this is not the first time something like this has happened recently, as train collisions involving elephants have increased in recent years in the country. And this is happening because elephants are trying to cross over tracks in their constant search for enough food and water, which is exacerbated by the loss and degradation of their natural habitat in the area. Additional elephant deaths in the country in recent years have come from the expected poachers, but also from farmers who kill the animals to defend their crops and homes as the herds move closer to human settlements on their quest to survive. And I share this story not just because it is important in and of itself, which it is, but because it also illustrates the problems facing elephants in the wild. This all becomes one big cyclical issue. Humans destroy and degrade the habitats of elephants, which then have to venture to new areas to try to survive. There they encounter things they don't fully understand, like train tracks, and some die with collisions with trains. The ones that survive then have to venture even further away from their original habitat, which moves them towards human settlements, where some of them will be killed as well. And because they destroy crops and cause these scary and expensive train wrecks, people in the area start to see elephants less as the majestic beings they are and more as nuisance animals, which leads to an uptick in attacks against the animals and less of a desire to conserve them and their habitat, which leads the elephants to have less security and have to venture further afield, which leads them to encountering different train tracks and different human settlements and on and on. And this is the type of thing that so many of the "why isn't she in the wild" commenters on social media and such just don't get. I love the mental image of a beautiful natural land where elephants can roam and exist and have the best elephant lives. but that's not really what we have given them. And it really is a bummer. At least we have conservationists who are doing the work to lessen human-animal conflict and trying to save the species, though. So that's good. But all right, let's have some fun with this next story to try to alleviate the ick that comes from the last couple of stories. Friendly reminder that it is March, which is my birth month. Wait, that's not what I'm supposed to say here. Crap. Okay. Take two. Friendly reminder that it is March, which is the month we spend celebrating my birth and all of the...
No.
Okay. Ren Howell is here all the way from Australia just to yell at me for going off target. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Take three. Friendly reminder that it is March, which means that it is officially sea turtle nesting season, which is actually a pretty great birthday gift for me since I love sea turtle.
No.
Fine. But yes, it is officially sea turtle nesting season, which means if you live near beaches, you can do your part by turning off your lights, staying away from beaches at night, staying away from any turtles you might see on the beach, reporting any turtles that seem to be in distress, and in general, just being a good turtle citizen. Because again, if you do that, I'll consider it an amazing birthday.
No.
Fine. Anyway, that brings us to...
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
All right, just one quick story in other news this week. I want to share a new discovery about mice with y'all that I just find fascinating. If a mouse falls unconscious and there are other mice in the area, they will try to revive it. They specifically will nibble on the other mouse to try to get it to wake up and will also gently bite the tongue of the fallen mouse and pull it out in such a way that enlarges the airway of the unconscious mouse, allowing it to recover faster. Even more impressive, these behaviors are hardwired into the mice, as the neuroscientists doing this research found that the part of the brain responsible for involuntary functions fires when these behaviors are performed. Similar actions have been documented in larger-brained mammals like dolphins and elephants, and we already knew that mice would try to help their peers if one was trapped, but something like this, a true first aid type of behavior, has never been studied in small mammals before. And while the actions seemed to come from the involuntary part of the brain, there were some other interesting discoveries about the behavior, one of which is that mice would continue to try to revive fallen comrades over multiple days. Another one is that they would stop if the mouse was deceased. And also, they were more likely to perform the actions or to perform them more frequently if the troubled mouse was known to them rather than just a stranger. I find all of this to be absolutely fascinating. And to me, it really gets into an interesting discussion of morality and the basis for it and our understanding of it and all that stuff. But I will leave that for my wildly crazy internal monologue and not make y'all suffer through it. You are welcome. And that brings us to...
Animal holidays. Animal holidays.
All right, it is March, which is my birthday month.
No.
Fine, whatever. It's also Dolphin Awareness Month. And then for the individual days, we have the 14th, which is Save a Spider Day. The 15th is both Buzzard Day and Save the Florida Panther Day. The 16th is National Panda Day, not to be confused with International Red Panda Day. The 18th is Global Recycling Day, and the 20th is both World Frog Day and World Sparrow Day. And I find this amusing since sparrows often eat frogs. Not a great way for them to celebrate World Frog Day, but I suppose it does make the sparrows pretty happy. And those are your animal holidays for the week. Alrighty, there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News that was only dorked up by dogs a bunch at the beginning, which is, pretty cool. I'd like to give a thank you and a shout out to our good friend Ren Howell over in Australia for letting me, when I first recorded her, just record her yelling at me saying no. I love dropping that recording in every couple months, and it makes it feel like she's really on the podcast, and we all miss her, don't we? I know we had her for the holiday special, but don't worry, she'll be back again this season. We love Ren. I'd also like to say thank you to all of my Red Panda level patrons, including Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Kevin Williams, Melissa Reed, and John Lewis, who is also here for the stickers. And to remind you all that you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari, and that everyone at the $10 and $20 level also gets a free monthly sticker from our friends at Cappy Trails. I'd also like to say thank you to everybody who contributed stories this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbug, Dr. Laura Schenk, Ken Tryon, Jacob Zinn, Holly Page, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, The Malenskys, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Jay Meredith, Lizard Dunlevy, Andrew King, Meredith Weaver, Rowena White, Sarah Gilsol, Turan Hanton, and Ann Yoshioka. Thank you all so much for contributing to this week's episode. We'll be back here on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode, and then back again on Friday with your next Zoo News. But until then, remember, friends, the words newsy credits backwards are Steider Kuswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
To Mother Ashiki, Ashki, I can't read my own.